I don't have a gavel again, but I'm going to do this and call this meeting to order. Welcome. Good to see everybody. I was just talking with our vice chair, and we made this mistake once before where we thought it might be a fast, sort of quick meeting, and we were wrong. But we both think that we are, as a committee, we are definitely nearer the finish line than where we were a long time ago. So with that, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. This is October 21st Charter Review Committee. And we'll start with a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Tony. Is there a second? Thank you, Blair. Any changes, comments? All right, all those in favor of the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda carries. Thank you. And we have our minutes from our October the 7th meeting. I'll take a motion to accept them. Michelle, I heard that. Is that Phil over there with a second? Thank you. Any changes or comments on the minutes? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Thank you, they carry. To everyone, pardon my voice tonight. I got plenty of water here, but I can tell I'm losing it a little bit. If you would, Laura was kind enough, as she always is, to provide for us the list, a fresh list of the proposed charter amendments. Now, again, this was the list that the county council has been kind of keeping track of for probably the last several years. And Michelle made a good suggestion at our last meeting that let's just make sure that we have gone through them. There are 32 of them. Trust me, we think we've gone through most of them. What I'm going to ask everybody to do, we're actually going to start at the back. So if you'll go to the last page, because I'm certain, because of the diligence of our committee members, that we've covered a lot of the ones on the front. So let's just start on the back and move our way from 32 forward. And again, it might not take that long. Number 32, interestingly, is one of the signature topics that we've played around with. Should there be a provision added to the charter on what happens when either the executive or legislative branch of government violates the charter? I had conversation via text with Laura today, via email, sorry, and she reminded me that we had kind of discussed this relative to maybe a censure motion or something like that, if would perhaps better fit in the rules that the council might adopt. That might not, Paul, I'll look to you. How would that apply to if the county council thought that the county executive had done something egregious? There is no censure. There's nothing in the charter regarding that. And I think as a committee, we had sort of, why don't we put this into the code? Thoughts?
Well, certainly a letter can always be written from the council to the executive with the whatever the complaint is about violating the charter. But right now, there is no formal mechanism there. Usually when you think of censure, that's by the body of a member of the body. I think it just happened.
The town of Ocean City just did that, correct, with a council member.
You know, we don't have that.
Right.
Really, the executive is not a part of the council, so it's hard to say that we would have a censure procedure for the executive by the council.
Right. Thoughts of the group? Again, we've kind of talked a lot about the fact that it's difficult to put into place something punitive that can stand muster, if you will. So we all know what our thoughts are, but I'll go back to something that, you know, if a county executive were to do something egregious, I would think it's part of the role of the county council to point that out and protest and write a letter or what have you.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa.
Executive toward the council.
And as Paul mentioned, if people missed it. A member of the Ocean City Council was censured by his or her peers this week. And it is what it is. It's a censure. There's no power behind it other than, if you will, you've been censured. And so unless somebody has some brilliant idea, I'm not sure that there's anything Michelle, please.
And that would have to go on the referendum too, correct?
Let's go on the ballot.
It would have to go on the
I'm
ballot,
saying we
yes.
have, and I can't see,
Yeah.
I just can't see that on a ballot.
Okay.
It's,
It's a difficult one.
yeah, I mean, you're going to put something on a ballot that really has no teeth at all, and you're going to have folks wondering what in the world is this, or have the perception that it's going to do something when it does absolutely nothing.
Sure. Catherine, please.
I agree with what you're saying, and the only thing I can think of outside the box is that maybe there's some kind of intermediary, that maybe the Ethics Commission gets involved, they hear what's going on. I don't know.
I would guess that if
Lines.
it's an ethics charge, Paul, that would.
And the way our ethics code is written, it's primarily a conflict of interest that relates to a financial matter. That's the primary thrust of it. Yeah.
Wayne, yes, sir.
I think as it relates to the county council, I agree with Michelle. Putting this on the ballot is, I don't think, a very good idea. But I think council can adopt by rule
Yeah.
procedures to
Right.
censure. And perhaps that's where this belongs. With regard to the county executive, we discussed this at several meetings.
That's right.
And we always landed back in the building next door.
The courtroom for those
You know,
watching
and
at home, yes.
And you know, I mean, that's unfortunate because, you know, it led to a lot of dysfunction that was very, very unfortunate. But at the end of the day, this is an elected official, and you know, an elected official still has the right to defend themselves. And I don't know that we can craft anything that would have.
Thank you, Wayne. Yes, Sonia.
Wayne answered my question too. So remind me, we are providing the recommended amendments to this charter, but can we also provide general recommendations? Because I was going to ask if there was a way outside of the charter to have the process or whatever for censure, and I think Wayne answered that.
You literally read my mind, and what I was writing as you were asking was, you know, we're going to, in our narrative, there will be things that we will recommend, though, like we recommend that you adopt rules of order, Robert's Rules of Order. We recommend that a change for punitive things be put into the code of conduct. We're not going to recommend it as a charter change, but as a committee, we felt strongly enough about it to at least mention it in the narrative. Is the committee okay with that? Okay. All right. Number 31. Bob, would you mind reading that for me? Would you mind helping my voice out?
Add a provision that requires unanimous county council approval to set a property tax rate higher than the tax rate in the preceding year Montgomery Charter Amendment in 2020 election, i.e. to increase the property tax rate, was approved, replacing the property tax revenue cap limit.
So how in the world can we write anything that would require us or the citizens saying you must vote unanimously on anything, much less, that's my instant reaction to this. Wayne?
This tiptoes, it doesn't tiptoe, it wades into the revenue cap. And I don't think that that's anything that is going to be practical for us to put forward because, A, I don't think it'll make it to the ballot. And B, you know, I still think, particularly in the current environment, that there is enough general distrust of government that I don't see the electorate going along with some lessening of their overview of property taxes.
Other thoughts? All right. Sonia?
Just a question. Where does it say anything about the taxes in this charter? Towards the back.
Well, it says it in the section dealing with the tax
Okay,
cap.
okay. I just gotta find that.
For me, it's the first couple of words, add a provision that requires unanimous county council, period. For me, that's it. I don't care what comes after that sentence. I don't know how in the world you could ask that of any governing body.
I think section 706 is the tax cap.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, moving on from 31. Number 30, censure of council members. We just discussed that. We'll make a recommendation. Correct? We're good? Should the airport be an official department of the county? I think we took care of that very early on, Sharon. I recall doing that, so we've done number 29. We've done number 28, which is changing the charter back to the county commissioner council form of government. Bob, this is a long one, number 27. Would you read that for me, please?
Section
Thank you.
904, independent auditor. County council is responsible for hiring external auditors, but the auditors report to the county executive. Should this provision be expanded to provide that the council oversees the audits?
I believe we have addressed that. Okay, thank you. Flip your page, let's go to 26. Bob, you definitely get to read the next two. Thank you very much.
Number 26, section 712, appropriation control of capital funds. Does this apply to all capital projects or just bonded projects? Any surplus of funds unexpended at the completion of all the projects listed in the enabling legislation shall be credited to the capital program for the fiscal year succeeding the year in which said balance is ascertained. The bond council recommends getting rid of this limitation.
And we have addressed this, have we not?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Yes, sir.
Number 25, section 706, tax revenue cap. I can read it, but I mean, I
Yep.
think
Correct.
everybody understands what that is. Number 24, section 704, capital program and budget, extend the date of the adoption of the capital improvement program. Can the county executive amend CIP after it's submitted to the county council for consideration? The wording in the first sentence or amended is unclear.
And we did something with this where we were extending the public hearing deadline if the CIP if an extension on the CIP was asked for, we recommended that an extension on the public hearing accompany that, if I recall.
We did.
Phil, what did you, I apologize.
We did.
I thought we did that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Let's go to our score sheet.
I think it says, look at where it says 707, is that where it would be? The county council, you want me to read it?
Please, Sonia.
To state, the county council may by resolution change any of the dates and corresponding hearing dates set forth in section 704 and 705 herein, provided that said resolution states the reasons for, said changes or changes, and such resolution shall be effective only during the fiscal year in which said resolution is adopted, subject to the restrictions set forth in section 705. So I don't know if that's the closest one that I see that's green, but I don't know if that really takes care of the question.
Wayne, yes, sir.
If I might, we have, I think for the past 2 fiscal years, extended the time for adoption of the CIP. However, from an administrative standpoint, I do believe that we should stay with the timeline of presenting the proposed capital improvement program to council, because it gives the council and the executive branch several months to review what's being proposed and to get some sort of consensus, if you will, as to what we have an appetite for and what we don't have an appetite for. You really don't want to be giving the county council the capital improvement plan and the annual budget at the same time. It's just too much information to digest in a very short period of time. So I think what we have right now actually works.
I might
As
ask you.
council can by resolution say, we want to extend the period of time for adopting the CIP, and we've done it, and I don't think anyone's had any, the executive hasn't had an objection, and I don't believe council has either.
It's not broken, in
It's not-
effect.
In my opinion, it's not broken.
And you said because of resolution.
Laura might, yes.
So,
Help us
so
out.
the
Thank you.
concern is after it's submitted,
Yeah.
we do extend the date to, we make it simultaneous with the budget. And in between that time period, it gets amended. And the concern was, can the county executive just amend it after it's already been submitted to the council? And I believe Mr. Benson made the comment that, as long as a public hearing hadn't been held yet, he thought that it was okay for him to amend it. But once that public hearing is held, then it really should not be amended after that public hearing. And so that's why we came up with the language to change the public
Right.
hearing date as well.
Yeah, I think any amendment, once it's been submitted to the county council, I think any proposed amendment should then go back to the county council. I think we should be very transparent in that regard.
Yeah, but the process that we have been having is that it's submitted, is extended. We have the public hearing, because I think the public hearing's in February. It's submitted in December,
Right.
and then it doesn't get adopted until June.
June.
And you have that big gap in between.
Right.
Where you're,
Circumstances can change.
Yes.
Yeah.
so the CIP is a fluid budget and fluid planning document in the same way that a budget is a fluid planning document. Is that correct? So for me, if the county executive wants to amend the CIP after a public hearing and before final adoption, the county council has the opportunity to say yes or no. Phil, yes, sir?
I thought that this, what we said was the county council may, by resolution. I thought what we were doing was putting in practical language.
Yeah.
If practically speaking, it needs to be changed, they can change it. That's why we passed it unanimously, I think.
We did. That's correct. I'm okay with leaving 704 alone. I'm sorry, number 24 alone. I'll look to the group. Are we good? Okay. Number 23.
You want me to keep reading?
Yeah, that would be great, Bob. I really thank you very, very much, truly.
Section 609A, the question came up if the word compensation included pension payments. Can a former county employee serve as a council member if he or she is receiving a pension payment?
I believe the answer to that is yes. We were okay with that. Correct?
Marvin Long,
Marvin Long for a long time.
what do you gotta say?
Absolutely. Thank you. We good? Thank you.
22, Section 601B, clarification on benefits program. Does this mean changes to the benefit programs must be approved by council?
Anyone? I believe we had some discussion and changed where the personnel system would come under the county hello, Dallas. Come under the county executive. Wayne, you obviously have a comment to make.
Yeah, I honestly do believe that changes to our benefits program should be approved by the county council. I think
What does the charter
I think
currently
that's
say on that?
It's silent.
It's silent.
It's silent. But we had somewhat of a debacle with this, and I wouldn't want to see us repeat that. And I think it's very important that if we're going to change benefits, that the county council is aware and the county council approves those changes in benefits, just like they do with salaries.
Does that become a money question, so they'd have to be involved anyhow?
Potentially, I would think.
It may or may not.
Yeah.
The question, the benefit in question, Tony, was a voluntary benefit. There is a county match, but it was still a voluntary benefit. And what happened was the county changed the fiduciary, and employees did not really get, I don't think employees got proper notice in a timely fashion. So I think this is something that we really need to address.
Wayne, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would propose that there should be clarification to section 601B that changes to employee benefits program, proposed changes must be approved by the county council.
Thank you. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
I heard Dallas first, no worries. Now we can have discussion on the motion. Sonia?
So when you look at 601, the county executive may, okay, is it the fact that it says may? So the county executive may submit changes, modification, or revisions to the personnel system to the county council, which shall have the force of law upon adoption by the council. So what does that mean? That means that they don't have to, because number 3 says benefits program.
The personnel manual does not include the 457 program, and that's the problem that we ran into. It's a voluntary benefit. We also have, for instance, AFLAC. That's a voluntary benefit if you want to participate. I just think it's good form that both branches of government are comfortable with whatever changes are being proposed.
Yes, and so, but, and those voluntary benefits are not covered, that's what you're saying, okay. Okay.
Other discussion on this motion? Yes, sir, Matt?
Okay, I'm looking at my notes, and I add here, change benefit needs to be approved by council, yes, to include changes in cost. So I don't know if that's already there or not.
Well, I would assume that a change to a benefit, if one is proposed, would also come with, if you will, the fiscal side of it from the county executive, if we're right. I mean, it's not just that we're changing the benefit, this is the cost to the county. I mean, I'm assuming that that would be a logical thing that would come with that. Catherine?
So
I see your hand.
for 601B, it states here that, please forgive me,
It's all good.
work rules, benefit programs, and leave positions. So is that where we would just, the benefits programs, which also include, or, I mean, is that where you're looking for the change, is 601B number 3?
Yeah, perhaps we could say including voluntary.
Okay, work rules, benefit programs, leave, or comma, voluntary, okay. All right, I gotcha.
Well, are we getting too in the weeds by making, shouldn't we just say any, as the motion said, any changes to the benefits, whether voluntary or,
Yes.
involuntary?
Yeah.
Right, change is a change, okay. Other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote on the motion to change 601B3, that the county council should approve any changes to the benefits program. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Wayne. Bob, back to you, number 21. Thank you.
Section 508, Citizen Advisory Boards, and add county council after county executives, so the county council can appoint citizen advisory boards.
Believe we covered that? Correct?
Yes.
All right.
20, update any charter sections that reference Article 25A to the local government article.
Whoa. I'm drawing a blank.
Mr. Wilbur, is that something that we need to put a charter resolution in, or is that something that
That's a clerical thing as you'd go through, like the gender.
we might recommend it in whatever we write, but
Right.
it's something that the person who does the charter actually prints it, can update it.
Yep, that's clerical.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bob.
Number 19, Charter Section 507B, Department of Law, should the county attorney review all contracts of the legislative branch of government?
Does the county attorney currently do that?
No, not necessarily.
Do you think the county attorney should do that?
But under the current setup, the council has their own attorney
As we're aware.
review contracts.
So the review of this is where personal opinion, having two attorneys causes challenges on occasion. Paul, if the county council attorney were to review a contract within the legislative branch and give a thumbs up, do you by default agree that that's a thumbs up? Or do you then think, as the county attorney of record, that that should be reviewed by the official county attorney as well? Sorry.
Yeah, I think current practice is that I think a purely council-related contract would be reviewed by the council attorney.
What would a council-related contract be?
That's my question.
They hire an independent auditor or something like that for a
Hire
Laura?
an outside expert.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Or we
They
just
have to keep some autonomy. I really think they.
No, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So are we good on number 19?
No, because the charter says that it has to be reviewed by the county attorney.
Yeah, that's what the charter says, that essentially it would be a double review. If you wanted to follow the current charter right to the word, yes, it would be a double review. Yeah.
Gosh. So we'd be recommending a charter change that says that the council attorney is also has to have all of his or her work reviewed by the county attorney.
Well, I was thinking of contracts.
Contracts.
Yeah. I think that's what
Yeah.
the question's about.
Yeah, Paul, you did a write-up on this back in July, I'm looking at. Right, it looks like you took and let's see if I can do this. Okay, under 507A, about the fifth line down, prior to his or her appointment, you proposed adding, the county attorney may be either a contractual attorney or a county employee. Just going back to that, it's the second paragraph of 507A. And then under then it looks like, where is it? The county shall serve at the pleasure. Where is that? County ceases. Oh, then, okay, that second paragraph, you also amended to read, county attorney shall serve at the pleasure of the executive, period.
Period. Right.
And
We've done.
And we scratch "and the council."
Right.
County attorney may be removed, is all scratched with consent, blah, blah, blah. So,
I'm not sure if that handles the question that we're
The question
looking at.
that's on the floor
Right.
is, what are the functions of the county attorney versus the council attorney?
That's a rabbit hole that could take us another 8 months.
Mike, can I make a suggestion?
Michelle,
We
you
have a
may.
formal council attorney here. Why not let him just give you some insight? Yeah, if Mike.
Come on, former council
come and
attorney.
talk to us.
Keep it short, brief, please.
Yeah, I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill.
That's what.
In the 3 years that I was there, I think there were 2 contracts done, other than my contract, that would be 3, by the council attorney. One was to get the forensic auditor. The other was to hire, and this was done, the forensic auditor was done before I was there. Ed Baker was the attorney then. The second one was about a year ago when we hired an attorney, the council hired an attorney because of the problems with Mr. Culver. And I think that it's pretty obvious from the language of the charter that the county council has the right to have its own contracts with experts, attorneys that it would appoint. And any other contracts, it's hard to imagine, quite frankly, what they would be. Obviously, they can't do contracts that would pertain to the operation of the departments and things like that. So the scope of what they would do is pretty narrow. So frankly, I would either, number one, leave this alone, or secondly, in the provision for the county attorney, provide that the contracts do not include council contracts. Now, to be comprehensive about this, yes, the council attorney from time to time is asked to look at county contracts. I mean, they have the right to do that, just like any other government, the executive things that they propose to the legislative body can look at and analyze. But I think that's the way it is now, and I don't think that needs to be addressed. I think that's just common sense and common practice. But as far as the specific council contracts, I think they should have the right to do that, and there should be no, unless they ask the county attorney to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Michelle, thank you for that suggestion very much. Mountain Molehill here is where I'm going.
Mr. Wilbur, is the language we're talking about, I don't know, you have the charter in front of you.
Right,
Section is under B, all deeds, bonds, contract.
right. That's what I'm looking at, right,
And the county attorney shall review for form and legal sufficiency.
right.
So it's a limited review. You're just making sure that
Right.
it's,
That's right.
I mean, you're not being asked whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. You're just looking at it saying, yep, if this gets signed, it's a valid contract, basically.
Right. It's not the county attorney's place to say this is a good idea or a bad
Understood.
idea. It's just looking at the format of it, you know.
We've got 3 attorneys in the room who've all said, I think, Mountain Molehill. Are we cool? Thank you. We're at number 18. Thank you.
18, Charter Section 507, should this section provide for an in-house county attorney?
Covered?
17, Charter Section 504, reorganization, should this be redefined?
We addressed that.
Yes.
Yes, and now that I'm looking, it's funny how it all comes back. Yes, we have addressed that.
Number 16, Charter Section 414, temporary administrative appointments, should deputy directors be added to letter A? It should be a time period in which the county executive must appoint a director or deputy director when a position is vacant.
I don't remember what we decided on that. Does anybody have a recollection on where we were on this question?
I know you said we added D, must notify county council.
That's right.
Yes,
That's right. Thank you, Phil. That's correct. We did.
We got that.
413, yeah.
Great. The next one's a long read, Bob. Thank you, Phil.
So that's number
You're at 15.
15,
Yes,
Charter
please.
Section 414. Temporary administrative appointments, how much time should the county executive have to appoint an acting director? Should deputy directors be added to this section? The 90-day period to serve as acting director should apply to the position in person. County executive must state start date so council and public know when acting appointment begins. I think that's kind of the same thing that we just talked about, isn't it?
I think it is for me.
Number 14 is Charter Section 412. Should there be a residency requirement for the Director of Administration?
There already is.
Thank you, Wayne.
Number 13 is Charter Section 4, well, I guess the question is, should there not be? I mean, it's not
No,
written
right,
that
no.
way, but if there is already one,
Yeah.
should the reverse be true? I mean, it seems to me that's something that's not broken, so don't fix it. But
I would concur. I'm looking around. We're good? Okay.
that makes sense to you, Mr. Strasburg?
Yeah, I think, having held the position, I think that you make decisions that impact the citizens of the county, and you should be in the same boat that they're in.
I think it was just the expanding of it, correct? The question was moral turpitude, and what did that mean? And I think we added a definition to it, or discussed a definition, that is violent in nature and poses harm to a vulnerable population, I think is, but we're talking about, yeah, section 409. It was the word moral turpitude and how that would be interpreted, and that was a suggestion, but.
Whoa, I must apologize. I'm not following.
I think we skipped a couple.
Oh, you're on 13. Sorry.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
apologize.
Did I go ahead too fast?
A little.
Did I? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thought we were moving on.
We're good with the residency, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Charter Section, number
Here we go.
13, Charter Section 409, forfeiture of office by the county executive, should this provision be expanded?
Catherine?
Sorry, jumping ahead.
No, I'm saying Where did we fall on this?
The question was,
Provision.
or a crime involving moral turpitude, the definition of that. And
okay.
that's where we sort of got stuck and.
I think we did make one change to the moral turpitude. I think we added felony or
Next
something.
to it, we said to leave it be.
Okay,
I think we were back and forth on that.
all right, we leave it be. Flip your page, please.
Charter Section 408, removal of the county executive from office. Who makes the decision that the county executive is unable to perform the duties of office due to physical or mental disability?
That was another one that was leave it be, because you're looking to get sued if you try to go any other way, I think.
I'll look at the group. We're okay? Thank you, Michelle.
Number 11, Charter Section 405, qualifications of the county executive. Age requirement is currently 25 years old. Should this be changed?
We changed that to 30?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did say 30, yep. We're good?
Number 10, Charter Section 402, should a provision be added to require the county executive to provide any information as requested by an individual county council member, which is for the purpose of introducing a devaluating or I assume that means evaluating legislation, or to engage in the review and monitoring of the government programs, activities, and policy implementation.
As I recall, we agreed to that.
But I don't think we did anything. We agreed to add a provision to require, I'm looking at what we've agreed to in our score sheet on 402. And I don't see anything that we've recommended regarding this portion.
No, we didn't.
I remember discussions about it.
I think the way we left that, Mike, was that we said that if it was just for information, that you really couldn't change it or prohibit
Yeah,
them from
and-
asking.
Yeah, and Michelle, you've triggered, thank you. I think this also might have been the first time we talked about, is this a people problem or a charter problem, right? Where if there's good lines of communication, then this is not needed, right? This is all about communication. Okay?
Number 9, Section 315, confirmation of appointments. Confirmation should be done before a person is hired.
That one, I think we said that that's essential, that they should be confirmed before they're hired, if I remember correctly, and I might be wrong, but
Dan.
Just a point of clarification, would that cover the executive appointing an acting
So,
director or deputy director?
good question.
Because a lot of times, you've got to go out, you've got to research, you've got to advertise, you've got to interview. It takes time. In the meantime, you need someone, in that seat, typically an employee who's already in that department.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Wayne, but the thing is that you don't end up with someone in there, and you don't keep the person that's covering in there for limbo, both ways.
looking back on our scorecard, we spent a lot of time on 315. And there were a lot of suggestions, but according to our notes here, we took no action on more than a few recommendations. Two by Catherine, one by Matt, one by Bob. And again, they would have just been the people laying it on the table, and we would have had full discussion. We took no action. So I recall that this was a bit of a problem. Wayne, can you help me out? That I think, if I'm recalling our discussions, we felt that a person being appointed needed to be appointed before they began to draw a paycheck. and there might have been a few instances where that didn't occur, where the council did not approve Susie Smith in position A, but Susie started drawing a paycheck before she
that's the
she was
case. And we
confirmed.
had- And we had a person appointed to a position that the county council actually voted down, and that person stayed in position.
Yeah,
And that's
where we.
certainly not good governance.
So I might ask everybody to look on your score sheet. The last recommendation that we took no action on was, Bob had made to add a new sentence to state, an initial appointment hereunder, I don't know why I'm reading this, sorry. An initial appointment hereunder should only be effective after the council acts to confirm the appointment or fails to act to confirm or reject an appointment. We took no action on that at that time, back whenever this would have been. Sonia?
Yeah, and I won't pain you all to read the 2.5 pages of notes from that, our discussion on 315 that Laura put together. But, yeah, there was a lot of, there needs to be language about what happens when they violate the charter. There's a lot of, let's add this at the end for clarification, but as you said, the actions are on the scorecard, and we didn't take
No, we
action.
took no action
But we talked about it a lot.
for 2 to 3 pages, apparently. Yeah, Sharon? Thank you, Sonia. Sharon?
I'm going to think about it a little bit differently, because I think the provision is already there as to what should happen. It just wasn't followed.
Fair.
So it's not to,
45 days, yeah.
right, so the county council, if we're using the last incident, which is why the question is here.
Sure.
The county council did take action, they rejected it. So does it go back to,
And then the person was appointed anyway.
right, so does that go back to the,
Goes back to the,
yeah, so does that go back to the executive, not
Following the charter.
violating the charter?
I think that's why we had that discussion,
it is.
violating the charter.
Yes, thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Bob. Wayne, yes,
So
sir.
from a pragmatic.
Thank you, Sharon.
So from a pragmatic standpoint, if someone is appointed to a position for which they are not confirmed, I think the council should have the ability to preclude that person from receiving a paycheck in that position.
Well,
I understand why they didn't anyhow.
Well, I think
I don't know if they have the
Hold on.
authority
yeah,
to do that
they don't have the authority.
currently.
because-
But I do think it's just untenable to have a person in position receiving a paycheck in that position when the county council has rejected that appointment.
I recall
That's,
Governor Hogan appointed an acting director of, I think, the Department of Health. The General Assembly turned down that appointment, and that person did not get paid. That person continued to serve. Catherine, you're nodding your head because you directly work under that and with them. So that person did not get paid, but that person was the acting director of the Department of Health. So according to that scenario, what happened the last time, that person shouldn't have been paid because the council should have said in some way, we're not paying that person. But it doesn't say it in here, and so what do we do? Paul, were you about to weigh in? Did I see you? Okay. I thought I caught a little vibe on that.
I'm
So-
listening.
So, again, this is something we need to fix. And this is, I don't know what the fix is, but this,
I'm still thinking that it goes back to whatever we're going to do about the executive violating the charter, because in that particular case, the council didn't control whether or not that person got paid, because that person was the person who could write paychecks.
that's a great point. In this particular case, it was. That's a great point.
amendment that was done.
Mr. Taylor, do you have something that, thank you.
Yeah, I might point out, it was after the incident that you all have been discussing that the council hired the attorney that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. And I'm not going to say there was any relation, but you can draw your own conclusion. But I would say this, that during that process, when we were in the process of hiring that attorney, we also passed legislation, Laura, and it was partially to address this situation. I'm not saying that that's the ultimate, that you all should do nothing, but you might want to take a look at that legislation first, because I think it comes fairly close to covering the waterfront on it, where you have a situation like this.
Since you're here
Yeah.
and you're at the microphone, do either you or Laura recall, I'm not asking for verbatim what was passed, but do you recall what the legislation was
Is that 2020-19?
that addressed it?
Is it 2020-19? Yeah,
I'm not.
that's the legislation.
Yeah, the numbers are beyond
Yeah, no,
me at
yeah,
the
no.
moment, but
Yeah.
it was to address this type of a situation where somebody who was not properly confirmed continued to serve and get paid.
And I'm saying, what
Yeah.
was the?
Mike, it's
what-
right here.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you,
Section
Bob.
315, Director of Administration, Assistant Director of Administration, and Department Heads, the initial appointment of Deputy Directors, appointment by the County Executive of the Director of Administration, the Assistant Director of Administration Department Heads, or initial appointment of a Deputy Director of a department in the executive branch of the county government shall be subject to confirmation by the County Council. If the County Council fails to act to confirm or reject any appointment within 45 days of its submission to the County Council at its legislative session by the County Executive, the appointment shall stand approved. That's what it says. That's the amendment from, that's mentioned right below
That's-
section 315.
Yeah, but that's, I think respectfully, Michelle, that's not quite what we're discussing, sort of the opposite of
All right,
that.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, this is for approval and a nomination, so thank you. No, it's all good.
Yeah,
I mean, it was to hopefully avoid having to hire the attorney. I mean, that was part of it, and it was actually at that attorney's recommendation that be put in there. The idea being, try to settle it out of court if you can, and if you can't, have the legislation to back you up if you have to go to court.
So that's
So
what the
that's
legislation did.
why that was done that
All right.
way.
I think that legislation closed this loophole.
If it didn't, it comes pretty close. I'd
Yeah,
have to
I
maybe.
believe it did.
Yeah, I think
I
it did
believe it
too.
did.
So the legislation amended the county
Yeah.
code,
County code, yeah.
and it was not a one-time, did not apply to just that one
Oh, no,
situation.
no.
It applied to all
It's-
future.
Oh, yeah, it's permanent legislation. Yeah, it is. Can I make one other, just change the subject real quickly?
I don't know.
It'll take a minute of your time. I think it'll be constructive. On the, Mr. Strasburg's right, the county administrative director has to be a resident. I would suggest putting something in there that when the person is appointed, that they don't need to be, but they must become a county resident within some period of time, 3 months, 6 months. I'm working with another county on their charter, and they already have that in there. We're not making that change, it's already in. And I think if you look at some of the others, you might see something like that.
Okay.
Because it allows a more broader
Sure.
search
pool,
and application
Yeah, that's
pool.
right.
Yeah, so that's
Thank
my
you.
suggestion.
All right, so what section of the charter would that be in? Where were we? We just had that.
County
Find it.
Administrator.
Yeah, but what number on our list was it, everybody? A residency requirement. It was number 14 on our list. So I will entertain a motion that someone wants to make based on what we just heard, that,
I think Worcester County, Dallas, correct me.
Dallas, help us out.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because Weston was appointed, and he had to become a resident within 6 months. 6 months in Worcester County. And that seems to make sense to me.
It seems an equitable amount of time.
Would somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
Well,
Go ahead.
so section 412, the language says prior to assuming the duties of the office.
We would
Director of
adjust that.
Administration shall be a resident, so that the language,
Hold on. Sorry. Order, thank you. Bob has the floor.
we're saying that the language prior to assuming the duties needs to be removed, and within 6 months of appointment, or some similar language needs to be inserted in place.
I think that's what we're saying, yes. if everybody would turn to section 412, please. And if somebody wants to wordsmith a motion, because it appears that there's some consensus for this. Go ahead, Phil.
I think it's pretty straightforward the way it is. If you're appointed prior to taking the position, you need to move into the county.
So we're here.
You're saying 6 months, I'm saying
Well, but-
before you take the,
All I'm saying is if you want to widen the pool, someone's not going to give up a job in Baltimore County and move here on the hopes that they're going to become elected. That's the problem.
Or appointed.
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 Appointed,
Yeah.
either way,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, that, you have to look at it that, just to have a wider pool. I mean, I
So
think
it-
that's important.
But reading down, and I think I'm, prior to assuming, it's not saying prior to accepting the job. It's saying prior to assuming the job and the duties that you have to move and be a resident of the county. So that might be an apartment complex. If you live, Michelle, to your point, in Baltimore City, and you're hired as the Public Works Director, I'm just making something up, you say yes to the job, and prior to your first day on the job, you have to move and have a front door key somewhere in Wicomico County, is what I think this is currently saying. And you're suggesting this is enough. Okay, so if there's, I'll entertain a motion, as always. I think okay, I'm not hearing a motion, so we're going to.
I make a motion that instead of saying prior to assuming the duties of the office, it says, I don't know, within 6 months, and I'm horrible at wordsmithing stuff. So, but what I'm trying to say is that you have 6 months to move here. And literally 6 months, and then you have to be a resident of that county. And I'm just thinking about it from the Purdue standpoint and all these other companies where you have a family, that's not realistic sometimes.
So instead of saying prior to assuming the duties, you are suggesting, gosh, I even wrote it down.
Within 6 months.
Within 6 months of assuming the duties. Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Wayne heard first. We will now have discussion, even though we've been having discussion. Any additional discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion, go ahead, Blair. Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're good.
Put our thinking caps on.
That's what we're doing.
Did we say that the county executive has to be a resident when he takes office?
Yeah, we said
Yes, we did.
The day of
Right.
filing.
Yeah,
Right.
because that was the age requirement thing also.
Okay, would that be of an issue that we want to be consistent
What?
with?
Can somebody from outside the county,
Can you use your microphone?
outside the county run and then say, oh, I got the job, so I'll move to Wicomico County?
I learned last night, because we're having a candidate school, the Chamber of Commerce and GSC and PACE. I learned last night that, many of you may already know this, I didn't know this. You can run for Congress in the state, in any state, in the state of Maryland. You may run you can run for the 8th district even if you live in the 1st district. And you don't have to move there. You may live in Carroll County and run for being a delegate in Baltimore City.
The lady from Georgia did that, then she moved into the district.
Yeah.
Got elected.
So is there a residency requirement to file? I'm looking at Laura and Paul and anybody else on this. Where are we here? Kind of go back to the charter.
That blows my mind.
I think they have to be a registered voter.
Registered voter in the county? I mean, if we address.
Let's see here.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Section, what does it say? What does 405 say? Help me out, people.
Resident and a qualified voter.
Thank you. Okay.
For at least 5 years.
Thank you. We've taken care of that. Thank you, Blair.
Done.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to change prior to within 6 months. All those in favor of within 6 months, please say aye. Aye. I think opposed. Will you raise your hands, please? All in favor of within 6 months? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in favor. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. 8 in favor, 3 opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Good discussion, everyone. Appreciate it. We're getting there. Number 8. No worries. I'll read number 8, Charter Section 311, Legislative Procedure. Should the Open Meeting Act exceptions be added to this section? Yes, Wayne?
I mean, the Open Meetings Act
Is what it
is a
is.
function. you know,
Yes.
It's state law. Why do we have to embed it in our charter?
I think that was the conclusion.
I agree.
Number 7.
Thank you.
Charter Section 306, action by council. The section indicates a majority of the total number of council members established by the charter must be physically present to constitute a quorum. Should the word physically be removed, during the pandemic, the council had to meet remotely a few times.
I recall that discussion, and there was a motion put on the floor. The motion was withdrawn according to our score sheet. So I guess that motion was withdrawn because we didn't think that that needed to be changed. Okay, thank you.
Number 6, Charter Section 304C, the council administrator and special assistants removed by resolution.
I'm looking to see if we did anything.
Yes,
We talked about it.
yes, we did.
We talked about it.
It failed.
Failed.
It failed. Yes, it did. There was no right. Move the word by resolution. It failed. By a 12-3 vote. All right, so we addressed it. Thank you. Moving on. Thank you.
Number 5, Charter Section 206, if an appointed person serves for 1 year or less, is a special election necessary.
It's funny, we might be having that discussion later tonight.
It was passed.
205.
What did we,
I'm confused. An appointed person isn't elected. Appointed persons are appointed.
It was referencing Nicole Ackley when she was appointed, when Mark Kilmer.
yes, thank you.
Nicole came before the
That's right.
Charter Review Committee and spoke on that.
Okay,
Thank you, Laura.
gotcha. Thank you.
And help me out. What did we do?
Nothing with that
You
part.
passed it, you removed
To
it.
strike it, so we voted to strike this section from the charter, section 206. Didn't? I'm looking at the score sheet. That's all. Help me out.
206. We voted to add, to fill a vacant position of an unaffiliated member who has left office unaffiliated,
all I
voted to
see.
submit their name to the county council. We passed it unanimously.
I did.
Right, but that's not addressing that question, is
Right.
it?
We addressed all those times.
205.
What's that, Blair?
I thought we addressed all those times in a section. I'm having a hard time remembering that, but I thought we did discuss that.
I think it was 205.
205. I don't, okay, to eliminate unless there is a special election as described in section 206.
My notes say that we just deleted 206.
Yeah, that's what
I have too.
I have.
Yep, that's what I have.
Let the other provisions stand.
Right.
A and B of 205.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking right here at the scorecard and
I don't see it on the score sheet.
section 206, it says to strike section 206 from the charter. Wayne made the motion, second by David, and it passed unanimously.
Where is that?
I think I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this, the scorecard.
Not on there.
On page 2?
No.
Where are you reading from? I'm sorry.
Oh, I do have
It's
it.
there.
It is, yeah, it's up there.
Oh, it's above 205, A and B on the list.
Snuck it in above it.
Yeah.
It's out of order.
I apologize.
Make sure everybody's paying attention.
We'll fix it. Laura is amazing, but she is an imperfect human like the rest of us.
She didn't do anything wrong.
Correct.
It was hard to
This one
see.
needs to go.
I'm saying, trying to sneak it up, and I'm kidding. Come on, everybody. So we've voted to strike it.
We voted to, yeah.
Okay. We took action. Okay, number 4.
Charter Section 205, vacancies, recommendation to define search process and public input. See Charter Amendment from 2020 election, Frederick County. When there is a vacancy, the local, state, central committee should recommend 4 persons to be selected, but this provision should not obligate the council to select one of the 4 persons.
Looking at the scorecard. So I believe that a council member may have spoken about this, and I won't remember who. They wanted the option to go outside of the recommendations of the central committee. So if the central committee of either party recommended 4 names, I believe this was meant to allow them to go outside those 4 names if, in fact, the council decided they didn't like those 4 names. And they wanted to select another Democrat, not recommended by the Democrat State Central Committee, just if I'm recalling. But it doesn't look like we did anything on it. So we can let it stand, which is apparently what we did the last time, and not do anything. Sonia?
I'm just a big believer in no.
I know that.
Okay. But anyway, Julie's not here, but she just said, Ms. Bellamy believes utilizing the central committee gives us sitting council a buffer. There's a lot of that information, and Mr. Phil Tillman said it's not perfect, but it works or it can work. So we just left it alone. We did decide to do that after just talking through it.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. Bob, there's no way I'm making you read number 3. It had to do with compensation. We made a change. Look on your score sheet. That's all we did. It passed unanimously.
Where?
But I don't think we can do
On the score sheet, section 204.
Oh, I'm looking at 203, sorry, okay.
It's all right.
My recollection, though, is that we cannot do that.
Yeah.
Oh, we
State law
can't.
problem.
Yep, we could not do it, that's exactly right.
Right.
Sheriff, right?
Yeah, we have to.
We can't.
We had to leave it alone.
Right.
I think we voted to do it, and then Mr. Wilbur
What's it check?
researched it and
So
said,
204B1, we're scratching that from the score sheet because we're not allowed to do that.
Right.
All right, cool. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Paul. 2 more. Part number 2.
Charter Section 202, qualifications, should Wicomico County teachers be allowed to serve on the county council? Currently, county and state employees are prohibited from holding office.
Wow.
Alone.
Left that alone?
Left it alone.
Yep.
Why would we leave that alone?
Because we're not going to carve
Little
out
bit
a
of
special
conflict.
exemption for a special special group, right?
Yep.
If we're reading the question right, it says Wicomico County teachers, correct?
Yes.
Not just Wicomico County.
So they're allowed to serve.
No, no county employee is allowed to serve.
They're not.
No.
They're an employee of the Board of Education. I believe Mr. Todd's an employee of the Board of Education, but he's not a teacher.
Right.
So if you wrote teachers in, you would be saying the teacher could do it, but
They can,
Mr.
but
Todd,
others
who's
can't.
an employee of the county board, could not.
Got it.
Correct.
Technically, they're state employees, they're not
Correct.
county employees. So it's still covered.
Right.
It's a state employees.
So,
That's interesting, because, so Lou Riley could serve because he was an independent bus contractor and therefore not an employee of the Board of
Exactly.
Education.
That's correct.
Isn't that something?
But if he was an
I would have
employee
hated
in
to have thought of Lou Riley
Not being able to serve.
and all the positions he served.
So we left it alone, or are we going to leave it alone? Leave it alone, okay? Very good.
And number one is to add a new charter section to define local governing body.
And I recall we discussed this more than a few times, but yes, local governing body, we did make a definition change, and it passed unanimously. We have gone through the recommendations of the county council. We're going to take a 5-minute break. It is 6 minutes after 6,
Are you leaving?
and we'll be back at 11 minutes after 6.
I told her.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, I see.
If nobody takes a break.
No, something.
Adjourn. I'm sorry. We are reconvened. Woo. Sorry, everyone. Laura sent us something this afternoon, was dealing with the vacancy in the Office of County Executive. We do not have that on the agenda. Would Phil or Laura, I need a little help. Are we allowed at this stage of the meeting to add something to the agenda in Robert's Rules world?
All we have to do is vote to consider it.
Yeah,
Do we need a motion for that?
I'd do it.
Would somebody make a motion?
Personally, I'd like to have time to go through this before,
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, if that's all right.
No, that's fine. We'll take it up at the next meeting.
It's up to you guys.
Nope, that's
I'd like to
fine.
Get it done. but
Nope, we'll take it up at the next meeting.
Versions that came out.
Yep. Thank you, Michelle. You are correct. So with that, next on our agenda is a discussion of how, and really about prioritizing. We're not really talking about how to prioritize, but we're talking about the subject of prioritizing. And Bob was kind enough, we had good conversation earlier this week, and he was kind enough to prepare a document that Laura passed out just before the meeting. At the top of it, it says criteria for consideration of charter amendments to be forwarded to the county council. And Bob did some real good homework, and he's written things up, and as discussed earlier, even though he did a great job of doing a whole lot of reading earlier, Bob, I'm going to turn this portion of the discussion over to you and ask you to lead us through the document that you've prepared.
Mike called me on Monday or Tuesday and wanted to have a conversation about how we would proceed from this point as a committee, and specifically how we would go about providing or presenting our recommendations to the county council. And our thoughts, at least, were that we probably ought to come up with a list of criteria that we would want to use in some fashion to go through the various amendments that we're suggesting. And it's not meant to be exhaustive. It's not meant to be, it may be that the committee as a whole disagrees with this, but I think Mike and I were in agreement, at least, that as a practical matter, it is believed that the county council is likely to only put a limited number of charter amendments before the voters in any one election. And we are likely to exceed that number by a factor of 2 or 3. And if we're going to exceed that, is it the committee's desire that we should go through those and provide the county council with our thoughts as to which ones are important, and go down and list this? We think these are the 2 or 3 most important. These are less important. The ones at the bottom may be aspirational, but we're not sure that that's something we think should, if you're not going to have space, that they need to go on the ballot this year. I think Mike and I were in agreement that, well, speak for myself, we've sat in this room and we've volunteered a significant number of hours. It is my hope that when we make a presentation to the county council in whatever form we make it, that the county council looks at it seriously and chooses to adopt or use a number of the recommendations that we make. And I think that it's probably beneficial from the council, from our point of view, to provide a list of priorities to the council as to what we think are important and which ones are more important and less important. So that's what this is supposed to just generate a conversation among the committee as to whether you all think that's something we should do. And there's just 5 items on here. There might be 10 items that the committee as a whole thinks are important, or maybe you don't think some of these are important. But, you know, the first one is a number of charter, how many charter amendments will the council likely place on the ballot? I think Mr. Wilbur has opined on that you're not likely to get more than 3, 4, 5, a maximum of 6 on the ballot in any one election. I don't want to misstate that, but I think that's
Right. The way I would look at it is it's not so much the advertisement that'll be in the newspaper of whatever the amendments would be, but it's producing the ballot with the ballot questions on it. And we talked about how to do that, and I think my suggestion would be if we do an article, if we do changes in an article in the charter, you could put the potential changes in that article on a ballot question. And so how many articles do you want to make into a ballot question? There's many articles in this charter, and I don't think we can put all of them. I don't think the council will put all of them up for a ballot question.
So recognizing that there's a limit to the number that are go on, if we exceed that, do we want to pick and choose which ones we think are more important and tell the council which ones we think are more important? Secondly, when we started this, I think there was a general agreement that we wanted to do this as much as possible by consensus. I think if you go through the list here and you look, most of the things that we chose to address got adopted, if not unanimously, almost unanimously. So I think by and large, the committee did that. So I think that's an important criteria personally, but I think as a practical matter, the committee almost did that anyway. The third one that I thought was potentially important was the charter amendment proposed by an expert, i.e. the bond council. So we've had the county bond council make recommended changes. They're an expert in it. We're not. It seems to me that that if we have the benefit of an expert coming before us making recommended changes, that we should give some additional weight to those changes. The fourth one is the proposed charter amendment likely to be considered favorably by the council. To me, that's probably less important, but as a practical matter, if we're making a recommendation to the county council to make a charter amendment, and that charter amendment is going to reduce the power of the county council, I guess the question as a practical matter is the county council likely to see that favorably and put it on the ballot. I don't think that's a reason for us not to make the recommendation, but it does seem to me that that's a consideration we might want to factor in as to where we put the priorities. And the last one was, what is the time frame before which the charter amendment would be effective? And the example I used was that we had Dr. Basart who come in and make a recommended change. And from my own personal point of view, I mean, I think it's probably aspirational, but as a practical matter, it wouldn't have an effect for 10 years. So while I'm not sure if it was up to me alone that I wouldn't say to the county council, I think you ought to consider this. To me, it probably gets weighted down at the bottom of the ones that if we decide to present it, that it goes down at the bottom, because it's not going to happen for 10 years. And it may be something that in other election years, they might want to think about putting on the ballot. And there may be other things that you all think should be as part of the criteria.
Bob, do you want to give them all the things, or do we just want to give them 6? Because if we give them all of them, then if you were sitting in that body, then in effect, they may regurgitate all over them themselves, as opposed to saying, we've looked at them, here are what we consider to be the top 6 items. Then they might say, well, what were the others? Well, if we give them all the others, then they're back doing what we're doing. So,
I mean, I think that's
don't
a
know.
question of the committee's. I have no answer to that. I think
Yeah,
that's a committee
I'm
decision.
just throwing that out there to
Right.
think about.
I
If we
think-
just give them 6, then they can take those 6 and narrow it to 3. If we give them the top 6 and say, here are the others, I might be sitting there and saying, well, you know what? I don't agree with the top 6. I like number 15 down there. Then we're right back having an open, they're rehashing it all. Just a thought.
I mean, as a practical matter, I mean, this is slightly off the subject, but I think what our chairman is talking about doing is basically writing a report. And I think he's volunteered he and I to do that. And then bring that proposed report back to the committee for the committee to go over it and make changes to it. And then we present a report to the council of our overall work. But within that, the question is, do we designate 6, to use your number, and say these are the only 6 we're giving you? Or do we give them all 15 changes, but we say these are the top 6?
Yeah.
Or do we do something completely different than that? And the purpose of this is just basically generate a conversation and get some discussion going as to how the committee thinks that we ought to approach this.
Well, first and foremost, thank you. I mean, truly, Bob, this was exactly what we had discussed. I had conversations called Phil the other day, called a council member the other day, just to sort of, feel it out. There is no, at least from where I sit, there's no right or wrong here. But Bob has put forth the considerations that we've been talking about all along. So let's have some discussion. That's all we're doing. I know, noted. We're not deciding which ones tonight. We're just having discussion about this whole question of how do we now proceed relative to identifying priorities in our body of work. Catherine.
All I wanted to share is I was watching Michelle count, and it's actually 24 proposed changes. So if we can at least knock that down to 12, and then have 6 as our priority and 6, I mean, sort of as a compromise, because 24 is heavy.
And I think our first thing we said when we started the whole thing was unless it was unanimous, it wasn't being sent anyway.
Well, that was a discussion before we formally, that was at our very first meeting. And that was a general discussion. And it was never adopted formally that unless it's unanimous, but there's no question that discussion, and that should be part of what we're doing now, right? Maybe this gets easy and we just look down the scorecard and where were we unanimous, and that might knock out a whole bunch of them. I don't know. Yes, Wayne, I believe.
I have a couple of thoughts. First of all, Bob, I think you did a really good job on this. I do have a couple of comments, though. I think that what the public would expect us to do would be to put forth those proposed amendments that we think are crucial to good governance. So I'm a little reluctant to confine ourselves to some finite number. I think we'll get to that as we go through what we've proposed. A secondary comment would be number 4, is the proposed charter amendment likely to be considered favorably by the council? We're not doing this for the council, we're doing this for the public. And if we think it's an important proposed amendment that provides better governance, I think we should put it forward, even though we may feel that it won't be received well. we've been charged with presenting to the public what we believe is in the best interest of the public.
And on that point, we had good discussion about that. Don't let me speak for you if I say this the wrong way. That was simply, remember, we have said out loud in our deliberations over the last 6 months, well, this is probably not going to be passed by the county council, but we're going to do it anyway because we feel strongly. Or we've said, well, pragmatically speaking, because we can't have 40 charter changes. So this was, as Bob viewed it, and again, Bob, don't let me speak for you, this was only a pragmatic consideration among all the things that we consider as we move forward, not a, if the county council isn't going to approve it, well, we're not going to send it forward. That was not the spirit that he was offering, number 4. Am I close on that?
No, I mean, that's correct.
Okay.
I just think it's a factor.
Just a factor.
If you've got two that are equal.
Yeah.
And you have to pick between those two, and you think both are equally important, but you think one's likely to be considered and one's not, I think you might want to pick the one that you think is going to get considered over the one who doesn't. Doesn't mean you don't send them both, but I just think, my hope, I don't know that it's going to work this way. I hope that the county that if we present them with our work and they understand the hours that we put into it, and we say we think these 2 or 3 or 4 are really important, I'm hoping the county council will look at those seriously and seriously consider adopting them.
Well, that will be part of our message. I can promise you that. Sonia.
I'm asking, and I should be looking at my own minutes. I talked about how I like to look at minutes, but when we can combine things too. So if I'm looking at, we struck 206, and then another one was to eliminate a line that referenced 206, right? So that, if there was a ballot question, it would be to strike that and to eliminate that language. That those don't have to be 2 separate ballot questions, correct?
That's what I was saying about it. We have, I think, 12 articles in this charter.
Right.
Some of them we haven't made any changes to. But one thing I would think about is looking at, say, an Article 2, and if there's 2 or 3 changes in Article 2, try to bring that into one ballot question.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Catherine, is that a hand in the air?
Almost there, because now we're down to 12 that we voted unanimously.
Okay. And that was just a thought, by the way. That didn't mean.
Going back through.
Dallas?
Yeah, I just wanted to get some clarifications.
Yes.
Charter committees, we meet every 10 years.
Yes.
And there are elections every 2 years, so 4 years?
County elections every 4
years. Okay, so we only have 2 election cycles basically before the next charter review committee meets.
22, 26, and 30. So there'd be 3. Yes.
So
No.
yeah, if we're putting 6, if the general consensus is that 6 go on the ballot, there's potentially 18 of them could fit. Whether or not future councils decide to put them on the ballot is something else.
I'll remind everyone that the county council, without a charter review committee in 2016, I think, they had 8 charter changes on the ballot. So they didn't have any, this is not a thee or an us. They determined that 8 ballot questions or charter changes was sufficient and the public could handle 8. So there's no reason that we couldn't think along that same path as well. Phil, yes, sir?
I'm looking at those charter changes on the ballot. Did they all pass?
Yeah, and I think that's, Laura, were you going to say?
I was just going to say it's every 2 years. So if it doesn't make it in 2022, it can be 2024.
It can go on a non-county election year ballot. Thank you. Everybody understand that? Thank you for that clarification. My bad. Yep. Phil, which leads us back to one of the discussion points we had early on. It takes a lot to be a voter under normal circumstances, and when you ask the public to look at 8 ballot questions, I think statistically, across the country, not just here in Wicomico County, if it's a non-controversial standard change to the charter, I'm not talking about revenue cap or changes to form of government, these things pass overwhelmingly. If they make it onto a ballot, in most, I'm not talking about California where there's a gazillion ballot initiatives, but most of the time when a charter change occurs and makes it to a ballot, they pass. All 8 of these passed, and history and study suggests that people, well, if it's on a ballot, it must be good enough that the county council, the city council, whomever must have said, all right, this is pretty good, let's recommend it. And most voters go in and go, well, that's good enough for me, and they pass. That's neither a criticism nor a condemnation or a praise. It's just a fact. So whatever the county council does with our recommendations, many of them may pass. Phil, yes, sir.
With that having been said, it seems to me that it is perhaps, I don't want to say a waste of time, but it's something we don't need to do to prioritize our recommendations. We have done our work. We were appointed to look at ways to improve the charter of Wicomico County for good governance. And we report to the county council. We don't report directly to the voters. So the county council will choose which is, if they want to put 9 on the ballot next time, they'll put it on there, put them on there, based on what they think would make governance better in Wicomico County. So I don't see the need for prioritizing, frankly. That's just playing the devil's advocate here.
And to that point, the county council could look at our top 6 and go, no, 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 no. And they could look at no ranking, right? We submit everything, no prioritizing, and go, yes, yes, no, no, no. So go ahead, Tony. Yes, sir.
Read them first. I hope they do.
Pardon me?
They need to read them, the voters.
Again, to Phil's point, go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, they
Yes.
also put something on the ballot that we haven't recommended at all.
Right.
Correct.
Absolutely.
That's their prerogative.
It's their prerogative. Our work is the Charter Review Committee, and we have looked at the charter, and these are the changes that we think would best serve the citizenry, the good governance that has been the backbone of what we're trying to do here. Correct. Wayne?
So Catherine said that we're down to, I say down to,
Now down to 11 because
To
2
11.
of them actually would overlap and would be one.
so prior to the next meeting, could we have those 11 proposed charter amendments put on a document?
Unanimous one?
That's just the unanimous one.
I disagree
To
with
distill them.
saying it's just the.
Hold on. We're having discussion. Go ahead. Your thought?
I'd like to see, not the score sheet, but I'd like to see what has been voted up at this point in time so that we can absorb that before the next meeting and come back and have a good discussion about, okay, which of these do we feel should survive? I tend to agree with Phil to some extent. I think our decision is which of these proposed amendments should survive. And if it's 11, it's 11. If it's 6, it's
Well,
6.
I think Phil's saying they all should survive.
Yeah.
Right? Don't let me.
All should be submitted to the county council.
Right.
And they decide which ones survive.
Right. Dallas, I think you had a point or a question.
I just think that, some of when we talked originally, it was if they passed by majority and we were going to report what that score was. There's a lot of non-unanimous votes in here that aren't unanimous simply because somebody abstained. I just don't feel like that's the criteria that we should stop because somebody abstained or, it didn't get the full unanimous vote.
Right. So just a reminder that, hang on one second, Sonia. What we're doing right now is having, and this is fantastic discussion, we are having discussion on whether we think prioritizing is the right thing to do. That's what, this is a proposal if we want to go down the road of setting priorities. The alternative to going down the road of setting priorities is to call it a day. Here's the recommendations, submit as is. Either way, and Sonia, I'm getting to you. I do like the suggestion, and Wayne, I think we're asking for, let's get a final, forget the ones that we've dismissed. Can we get prior to the next meeting, here's the final ones that we're looking at? Okay, we can at least do that. Yeah, a clean scorecard. What's in the green? Yeah, what's in the green? Everything yes. Sonia.
I was just going to ask with that, and I don't know if this is a step further, because I'm also trying to understand how it would look on the ballot, right? So I think what you're saying, though, is that it's not definite that's going to be how, that's not definite how the ballot is going to look. You were suggesting that we could do it by section, for example, but it's not definite that that's the way that it would be. I'm just trying to see how that would look like, how many changes are in section 20,
So you're saying, could Laura prepare what it might look
Like by
like
section.
as Paul is recommending?
Yes. I just wanted to see. I don't,
Physically-
if it's too much work, I don't know.
Or is that-
It's just putting a heading for the article, so.
Yeah, and you have them already in the order, so just how we missed 206, the one where it was.
Yeah.
Just so it's just,
Okay.
or how I missed it, if we can have it so that it's just a little bit clearer, I think that would be helpful.
Yes, sir, Phil.
Paul, doesn't the county attorney determine the language that goes on the ballot?
Generally.
So we're asking the wrong person. I think we also need to ask Paul to do some more work. He doesn't do it.
It'd be nice just to look at what we have before Paul puts everything together. Even if Laura groups it by each article.
Or is it both, or can both be accomplished? Right, we're in the home stretch here. Could what Phil's asking and what Michelle is saying, couldn't they both? Could the two of you work to put the final wording in sequential order?
But let's
and
see
how?
what we voted on first, whether it's fully passed, abstained,
Well,
partial. Let's just
I will
get out
wait.
what we voted on.
I mean, I'm going to weigh in that if it passed, it passed. I mean, I'm using the basic rules of government. The biggest things in history have sometimes passed or failed by one vote. So I want to, I'm going to, if it passed or if it failed, that's my scorecard, that the committee, whether by 13-0 or 7-6, a pass is a pass. So that's where I am as the chair of this committee. So we've met for 7 months, and if something passed, it passed. And whether it was close or not, for me, that's how I know. Wayne.
I don't want to speak for Paul and Laura, but typically, we don't draft ballot questions until the county council has agreed to place something on the ballot.
Right.
And I think for us to have ballot questions drafted by the next meeting
That's a lot of work.
that's
Fair.
awful lot of work.
Fair. Great. Bob, please.
I'm not sure that we want a ballot question per se, but I think it would probably be helpful if you said, I think we can do all the changes to Charter Section 2 in one, or is it going to be 3 separate?
I think where you've been, let's do it by article and how many changes in the
Okay.
article.
That can be how the
I think
scorecard
that
is laid
will
out.
help
Okay.
the committee
Okay.
make their decisions.
I'm looking around the room. Yes, sir, Bob. Yes, please.
When we started this, I made the point, I think I made the point that I thought we should try to do things by consensus. I'm not sure I don't frankly remember the words unanimous, but either way, when you look at this, there's only like 2 items that were not, that were voted, that were not overwhelmingly approved, either unanimously or what. So by and large, the committee, everything the committee did was by and large by consensus. There's only a couple of exceptions.
Yes.
And frankly, looking at it from my point of view, and it's just mine, the items that didn't get passed overwhelmingly, I don't think are controversial. It's just a matter of difference of opinion when they got voted on. They weren't controversial issues per se to me. So I thought that the committee met the standard that we were trying to, that the stated standard to try to do things by consensus. I think we did that, so.
Thank you. Sonia? Yes, thank you. Sonia has another commitment. Thank you very much, Sonia. Same commitment. Let's give a plug for the United Way. Thank you very much, the United Way. So,
Thank you.
Laura?
I just want to quickly remind everyone that the ballot questions have to be advertised in the newspaper, and that is a lot more detailed than the actual ballot question. And so even though the citizens will, just see the ballot summary, so to speak, at the election box, in the newspaper, you're going to see all of
got
it, and it gets very expensive as well.
Okay, Phil? Yes, sir.
Do you know if when published in the newspaper, it can state that it was proposed by the charter review?
I don't think that's,
You can't,
it's going to be what the county council wants to put.
Legislative.
so they can't go into,
I don't think so.
You're asking if you can differentiate that this came from the charter review versus the county council?
just to say, this amendment is proposed by the
Yes.
charter review and then affirmed by the county council.
Got it.
To
Okay.
me, looking at this ballot and, my eyes glazing over
Sure.
to try to decide whether to vote for these charter changes,
Yeah.
I would be much more likely to vote for them. Of course, you say they're probably going to pass anyway, but.
Well, statistically is all I'm saying.
If I
I'm
knew a
not-
charter review committee
Right.
had spent 8 or 9 months
Right.
saying this is a good idea.
And then affirmed by a vote of the county council. Paul, is that possible?
I think that can be conveyed through the media to the public, that thought, but I don't think it will be on ballot questions.
Newspaper advertisement, it could be,
Right.
that could be mentioned, right?
Because of the time and the hour, and I want to always do things respectfully. So where we're coming back at our next meeting is yet another summary in the way that was just suggested, article by article, so we can look at it, number one. Second thing we will be doing is looking at this last thing regarding the vacancy in the county executive. Then the next order of business at the next meeting, and come prepared to vote on what you would wish to do, is whether we prioritize or whether we do not prioritize. And then if we vote to prioritize, we will determine a method of prioritizing. But if we vote not to prioritize, we will be sending everything forward as is. I will ask that in advance of the next meeting, and I'll make sure that that gets conveyed to those members who were not here or had to leave early. Is that okay, that I ask people to come prepared to yes on priority or no on priority? And then we'll go down. All right,
From the
great.
very beginning, as
Yes, sir.
we did this, had this discussion, what kept coming to my mind was that each of us probably ought to sit down and rank it. I don't know whether it's ABC, ABCD, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, but maybe ABCD, all go back to school, and do it that way. That way, give it some thought, and then if for some reason we get to a point, we can say, okay, how many people voted A on that one? And one person raises their hand. Okay, well.
It's that ranked voting, if you will.
As long as we have that well in advance that we can sit down and look at it.
Right. Well, and again, I think what Matt might be suggesting is an individual exercise that you can do between now and the next meeting,
Yeah.
which will help you.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Mike, that we get it early enough that.
That's right.
Not everybody can get everything done from a Monday night or a Tuesday night
That's
or a
right.
Thursday. Doesn't happen around our house.
Okay. I want to thank everybody before we turn to public comments. Great discussions this evening. Thank you for your patience. We're getting there. I think, no, I'm not even going to say how. We're getting near the end of finish line. I'll just put it that way. And with that, public comments. And yes, sir, Wayne. And Mr. Taylor, thank you.
I'll be quick if you want to wait.
No, in
I'm just
advance
kidding you.
of your comments, thank you
I said I'll
for,
be quick if you want to wait.
No,
I'm
I've
sorry.
taken my wife to do.
Thank you for your willingness to step up. Mr. Taylor, yes, sir.
Yeah, just a couple thoughts on the matter of the ballot and the ballot questions. You might want to get a copy of the 2018 ballot, which Paul wrote the ballot questions for, just to get an example of his work product and what they look like. And on that same subject, I mentioned I was working with another county. We met with their Board of Elections last week, and they pleaded with us to keep the number of ballot questions down.
Sure.
Because of the room on the page.
Right.
Now, I didn't get into them with, what size pages are you using, but we did promise to keep the number down. As far as combining everything from an article, Paul, I'm a little iffy on that, and here's why. Because they have to give at least some kind of a meaningful discussion of what the question is.
Right.
And if it's just to change sections X, Y, Z, nobody knows what the change is.
Yeah.
So it has to be, I think, a little more substantive than that. Although it certainly doesn't have to be the complete text of the change.
Right.
Just a couple other brief things, and I will give you some further thoughts on this. I think there are a number of the changes that you've approved that frankly could just be thrown out. For example, there's one on there about having the word county commissioner mean county council. Frankly, that is dangerous because there are places that in the charter that refer to county commissioners that should not be changed. And I can get into that, but you can look through, and if you just want to go in and word search, there's 3 or 4 places where it would not make sense to change that. There are changes, for example, on the appointment of the Public Works Director and the Finance Director, striking language that said, well, they'll be appointed under section so-and-so. I don't know what the purpose of that is. I mean, they're still going to be appointed under section so-and-so. So why change it? I mean, why even waste the time on it? The thing that you all did tonight, that's why I was asking Wayne to stay, changing the language in the personnel section about the benefit programs, it already covers that. I mean, the language that's in there now covers that. What happened a year or so ago was essentially unlawful, and, that's just the long and short of it. It was unlawful. It doesn't really need to be changed. The problem is if you change it just for that one little phrase, benefit programs, then you're suggesting that everything else that is in that particular subpart doesn't need to have council approval. Because when you change one thing like that, the automatic implication is, well, it doesn't apply to anything else. So I think you have to be real careful when you get into wording on things. I understand the intention, and I'm not arguing that the intention is bad. What I'm saying is that the particular methodology would definitely raise questions. I think I'm going to just turn it off. My Novocaine I got this afternoon is wearing off.
Yes, you're
and
good.
We'll see you later.
Thank you. With that, everyone, thank you very much for a great night, and we are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are-
The next meeting is 2 weeks from now.
I don't know where we are.
November 4th, I think. Yes, I got you.